Hello, another episode of Bob. Hope you enjoy it. In this one, more axle shite, I'm afraid. It's dragging on a bit, but you need to do it properly. And in this one also, I do an assessment of the rear differential. Show you how I use an engineer blue to check the mesh pattern between the crown wheel and the pinion. And that's about it really. Enjoy. Subscribe, thumbs up, thumbs down if you must. Comment below. Email me if you need to. ChurchHouseClassics, it's definitely all one word. Always has been, always will be. At gmail.com. And yeah, enjoy the video. So, big news today is that we've secured the deal and Redshed is all but sold. The plan is being drawn up for me to manage the restoration. But while the chap, Jonathan, was over yesterday, very nice, wife came over as well, very nice to meet you both. While they were over yesterday, we were just kind of going through, collecting all the parts together that will be included with the sale. And one of the issues I had with Redshed was that the rear tailgate is glass fibre. So I've got a spare tailgate. It's actually the tailgate that came off Alan, 1972 car, when I first bought it. But this tailgate here, although doesn't look particularly pretty, this lower skin area is available, but it's entirely restorable. The key areas up top here are all in really good order, and I think that it is a very restorable tailgate. So I've thrown that in on the deal, and then I was looking at the number plate brackets, and I've got 3 or 4 of these number plate, hinged down number plate brackets, and this is the one that came off Bob, which is why we're talking about it on a Bob video. Now, Jonathan was here when I was going through all this lot, and I picked this one up, and there was something odd about this one when I picked it up. I thought, well, first of all, it's heavier. That's unusual. And secondly, why is it rusting? When we get a magnet out, it's one of the very, very, very early and very rare steel number plate, fold-down number plates. Because it was very early in production that those started to rot out, that they bought in the aluminium version, which is probably cheaper to manufacture as well. But here we have, that one's attached to the car still. There is another one around somewhere. But basically, these are aluminium, much, much, much lighter, do exactly the same job, but don't rust. So, once again, Bob has some incredibly rare parts on him for such a horrifically abused car. That's his original colour, you see. What do you think? What about that? Lord. Anyway, this will get cleaned up. It will go back onto, it's going to have to be another tailgate, because the tailgate that came with Bob was absolutely and utterly trashed. It was folded in half. It had done, you've seen the damage that's on the top of the goalposts. And the glass was broken as well on the top frame. So it had a rear end altercation with a tree probably. But the fold down number plate, which was still on the tailgate, was okay. Just the rest of the tailgate was mashed. So I ended up scrapping the original tailgate because there's nothing I could do with it. I have got big chunks of it in the container, so I kept big chunks of it. But no, frankly, I'm flabbergasted. My ghast is flabbered. That's quite rare, that, because these all rotted out, you see. And again, it indicates that this car, okay, someone painted it red at some point, but it was blue prior to that. That's the original colour. Interesting. Right, okay, so enough gabbing on about rare bits of Range Rover stuff. What I'm going to be doing today is really, I'm working around assembling these hubs and getting all of the bits and bobs put together. Now, I noticed something really good. So let me get all my bits together and I'll talk you through. This is the original CV joint that came off the car. And I'll talk to you the problem, and it was pretty obvious to me, but I'll explain to you what you should be looking for when you put a CV joint on a car, because that is cheap, nasty fucking shite. That really is. Yeah, there's nothing nice about that one. That's the one I disassembled in the video. Back in a moment. Right, okay, so we've got ourselves organised here. So this was the original CV joint I pulled apart, tore apart, and this needs to go into, this is the front driver's side swivel housing that I've got here. So I've already assembled kind of the swivel wall. The original swivel wall is in there. It's on the pin. Now these swivel walls, by the way, they are orientated. I've not taken the other one apart yet, have I? It's in the parts washer somewhere. But basically, when you assemble it, that face and that face need to be parallel. It is possible to put the swivel ball on upside down with the early 6-bolt housings. With the later 7-bolt housings, obviously you can only go in one direction. But the 6-bolt housings, you need to make sure that you assemble the swivel ball onto the carrier in the correct way. So as long as those two are parallel to each other, you can be all right. The reason I'm doing all this is because I can just assemble all this together and then I can start working on the other side. CV joint needs to go inside the housing here, both. Got the drive shaft on the inside. Make sure you've got all of the various spacers, top hats and so forth. They all need to be in there. They're all important. You need them all. Okay? And the drive plate, which I've not yet cleaned up, needs to go on the outside. So drive plate goes on one side of the CV joint. Drive shaft goes on the other side of the CV joint. It's going to go in there, believe me. Could I be more cat-handed? Yes, there we are, drive shaft's in. And then, obviously, as the drive shaft turns, it can articulate in all these directions, and that's what the CV joint's job is here. Except this was obviously shagged out. Now, let's talk about CV joints. Because on these cars, these things are originally made by Harley Spicer, and they don't seem to make this early type anymore. So the only ones that are available are Brit part, correct part number, country of origin, Kung Flu. Never mind. I'm thinking then, well actually, is this a good idea? Now, so we compare. We're comparing like for like here. And one thing that you will notice instantly from this device here, this brand spanking new one, it's been hardened. The surface has been hardened. It's had a lot of heat going into there, which is what I would expect to see. It's not pretty, but it's effective. And I think this was never hardened. I just think that went together as a dirt cheap, really nasty dirt cheap unit that was never hardened. And because of that, it's worn out in next to no time at all. Because I think that when the suspension was built and the swivel balls were replaced, because these are fairly recent replacements, these, when all that was done and that these carriers were painted in red, I think new CV joints were put in at that point. And, you know, cheese, I'm afraid. This is what I mean about when you get parts and they're made out of cheese or butter, any dairy consumable. That one, although it's Brit parts, nothing wrong with Brit part on the majority of times. These guys just outsource a lot of their manufacturer. It does look exactly the same. Now, before I get all unnecessary and lube this thing up, I need to make sure that first of all the drive plate fits into it, which it does, and I need to make sure that the drive shaft fits into it, which it does. So I'm happy with that now. Right, so let's get this thing put together. Now, obviously, before I install this thing onto the actual axle, I need to make sure that I've put the seal RF and the retaining plate over the back. I'll probably do the preload once it's on the axle because it's just easier sitting on the chair doing it rather than risking things, mounting them in vices and crap like that, which is never fun. Right, gloop. It's normally quite thick, this stuff. Squirt it into all of the board areas. Don't be shy with it.
See how the team are getting on at the church as well. It's all go, you know.
You don't have to use the whole fucking thing, but I've got 2 of these to do, so let me just work it around, making sure I don't lose a spacer. Right, now you can see in there. gives it a fighting chance, I guess. Right, it's getting coated up nicely now. Very stiff, which it should be for now. Right, the other thing I'll need to do before I fit this is I will need to, because that plate there sits on the inside of this face in here, and it gives it stability. So when we push the drive shaft through, it goes as far as it can, and then it sits on that plate. We know we've got it in the right orientation then. However, on the back of the swivel ball, right here, is a gas. It's a seal, an oil seal, and I need to change that over. I have bought some more. Okay. These little chaps. Again, blue bag of joy and wonderment. Country of origin, UK. Yippity doodah. Maybe we're learning. Right, okay, get that one out. I find a jelly's the best way of getting them out, or pry bar. Bom, bom, bom. Probably should have been a bit better organised, actually having the pry bar with me already. Tough, deal with it. And then it's just a case of easing him out. There we are, out. No damage, no issues, no nothing. And there's the old seal. And then we... goes in, flat side down. That seems quite nicely made. Just check it's got the spring on the inside edge. The old one is still moves. It's still, yeah, got some give in it. But while we've got it all apart, we might as well replace it. That's made in England part as well. Good grief. We're actually making things again. This is outstanding. The only purpose, you notice the correct way of putting a seal in here. Richard, what the fuck are you doing? The country of origin, what are we talking about now? I don't know what we're talking about. La la la. A box of floblets. Is that one going to go in there? Yes, that one will go in there. Put the handle on him. There's obviously a gasket that goes on this face here up against the axle, but until I'm assembling it onto the axle, there's no point putting that gasket in place. He's in. Nice. I can go away. Oh dear. Monday. Too much booze over the weekend, I'm sure. That's what my wife would say. Right. Now we've done that, we can put the drive shaft through. He's in. And then we can put this outer drive plate on. So when you're putting the outer drive plate on, I find it helps if you can see the bloody slot. If you can see the slot, then it makes life so much easier when you're putting these bloody things together. On the inside here, there is a big brass bush, and that obviously fits over the nose of the CV joint. So you have to kind of wiggle around a little bit until everything kind of meets up. Yeah, and there it is. And then we have the lock tab dirt shield. This thing just keeps the dirt and dust away from this face here, which is where the oil seal sits. And that goes on there like that. Let's bolt him up. Got my big box of bolts here. Right, where are we? 14, 9 16, 9 16, so a little bar just to whiz them in with. Which makes life a little bit easier. Oh, I'm not thread locking these because there's no point, and because they're going to have locking tabs on the outside anyway. I need to get the bolts to secure this onto the axle because I'm missing 6 of them. I guess you could put washers underneath it, but they're not needed because of these locking tab things, which were in very good order. I took it all apart. I don't even know if you can still get these splash rings. I suppose if the tabs are broken off, then I'd put lock washers and thread lock on, but they haven't, and so therefore I shall reuse the bend up tabs just to lock everything in place. I've ordered a new pair of rear discs. I've probably got a serviceable pair of front discs that have been skimmed because I've just checked the gaps or checked the thickness of them. They're within tolerance. I haven't checked the run out. I won't be able to do that until kind of the hub's on the car really. I haven't got any way of checking run out unless the hub is fitted. I don't think I have. I'm going to have a little think about outside the box because obviously if I can check run out before putting the disc on, it would be useful because I'll just discount that one. I've put the gasket on dry. I've got no reason to believe it's going to leak, but then it's a Land Rover. How are you going to know when to put more oil in, etc.? One thing I haven't done with this, by the way, is I haven't checked that the drain plug and the fill plug work. What I'll probably end up doing with this thing though is, because it's unlikely this thing's to be deep wading, even though I'm putting new seals RFR on it and so forth, I might be tempted to put one stop into it. So one stop, for those that don't know, is just like it's CV joint grease, because the factory would recommend you put oil in. So if you do any wading and oil does contaminate the front hub or the differential for any reason, because you've been enthusiastic with your wading, then you simply just drain the oil out and put new oil in. With CV joint, with the one-stop stuff, the danger with that is if it gets contaminated with water, then it kind of has to stay there. Or you have to disassemble the hub, pull the CV joint out, clean everything, put it all back together again, which is a bit of a balls ache. Certainly a lot more work than if you're just going to drain out the oil. So what we've got on here is we're upside down at the moment. I'm also missing the plate which holds the brake back plate, so I need to order those up. That goes under there. So we've got the drain plug here. I think they're about 10 mil. I can't remember for sure. 7/16, 11 mil. There we go. Just check he comes out. He does. Always good news. Check he's not bunged up. The other area I need to clean paint off. I try and avoid painting faces where I'm going to end up with things like ball joints and so forth. I've obviously got a tapered fit inside here, so where the ball joint face goes, I'd actually just rather put a smear of grease over that face than. Oh, sorry, bounce there. Sorry about that, folks. I know on the top side here it doesn't. There's only the kind of the nut that goes in there. Sorry, the bottom side, only nut goes on that, but the top side, it does operate. Yeah, the joint, the gasket, the rubber goes down through that. So I just tend not to put paint on that. Similarly, not put paint on the face that goes against the axle. Picked up my magnet there, look at that. Right, the other thing we've got on here is the fill plug. There we are. Over there. wonder where that came from. German. Right, there you go. Take the fill plug out. Let's just rotate around. Fucking thing. It's probably just painted in now. Come on, you bastard. This might be a cock up. I don't know why I didn't check that came out before. It might need a longer bar on it. They are square sockets. You can actually put a 1/2 inch drive on it. In fact, that might be what I'll do, because on my spark plug wrench, 1/2 inch drive goes over there, and I can put a longer wrench onto those flats. See? Let's give that a go. It just saves mangling things up. Well, I say it saves mangling things up. Fuck you. Arse wipe. Too many tools on the bench. Back on, there you go. Back on, there you go. You noisy bastard. There's no point you fucking shouting at me, because I'm not moving. I'm well away from your bloody nest. There it goes. That works. Okay, so just really just leaning on it. I mean, obviously if the hub was attached to the car, it would have been significantly easier. Now, I mean, there you can see it's tight. There it goes. And there's the fill plug out. I'm going to have to give that a proper good clean up. I don't know why that was so tight in there. Thread looks all right. Anyway, when you're filling the swivels up, I don't know if you can see in here, you can see the edge of the chrome ball. When you're filling the swivels up, it's important to rotate the steering until you're past the chrome ball. Okay? Because if you put the fluid in like that, it just will not go in. Like that, it's pouring it straight into and on top of the CB joint. That's my top trick there. You won't be the first person to have thought they were full up and run them completely bone dry. Right. I think this one is more or less done. I just need to torque, pardon me, these up. I'm not going to put the drive plate on just yet. I know the drive plate's going to fit because we've already tested it. It goes in there like that, and it fits onto the CV shaft. There it goes. So he's in. He's out. He's cleaning and painting. Right. That's pretty good. Pleased with that. All locked together, all nice. The only thing that needs doing with that now is the shimming out. Okie dokie. These are the bolts that go hold the sweep seal retaining plate onto the back of the hub. As you can see, they've been painted red. However, with about 10 seconds worth of effort, you can get them looking like that. And then I'll just coat them with something. So all I've done is put a nut in the vise and go at it with a wire cut or wire brush on a drill. It just takes the paint straight off. I mean, yeah, I could just go out into the store and I could pick up a brand new set of, you know, 1/4 inch UNF bolts. But what's the point? There's nothing wrong with these bolts. The threads are good, the heads are good, they've just been painted. So, for the sake of just a few minutes work, you can have them looking pretty. I suppose I could have lobbed them. I mean, had I had the tumbling vibrator here, I could have lobbed them in the tumbling vibrator. But I didn't have it here. So, This is the next best. Already degreased them. They'll do. They will do. I will replace the spring washers as a matter of course, because spring washers are a consumable item. If you take the thing apart, the spring washer looks knackered. There's a pretty good chance it is knackered. So therefore, just the flat washers, I think I should be able to retrieve those. Another one done. 3 more to go. There's a dozen of these, all painted. Easy fix. Okie dokie, let's have a look at this differential now. This is the diff out of the rear axle. It's got a little bit of crap and odds and sods around it, but it's actually looking really, really nice. Now these things are dead easy to set up. There's plenty of instructional videos online that are available online, but I think understanding the key components within the diff might be helpful. So on each end we've got these adjustable wheels here, which will allow you to set the tolerances within the diff, and it's locked into place with this lever here, and a roll pin goes through there. I'm not going to go into any of this crap unless I find that the diff needs a load of work. Now these are not light units. If we look at the individual components in the diff, we've got the crown wheel, okay, one crown wheel, giant bloody thing, and the cage, the differential cage, is bolted onto the crown wheel. In the bottom of the diff, right in there, is a pinion. It's crown and pinion, yes, it's a pinion wheel, and the pinion attaches directly onto the input shaft of the differential, so the prop shaft attaches onto that, and the pinion's on the other end of it. There's a couple of real areas that you need to look at on these things. So the depth of the pinion is critical so that it meshes correctly with the crown wheel. If it don't, it's going to be noisy. It's not going to be good. So that's one of the kind of more important measurements that we'll be looking for here. Now the other thing you then get is you get the backlash and end float, which you just need to fiddle around with. And again, they're dead easy to set up, just time consuming. You can of course just send the whole unit away. There's plenty of companies out there that will refurb your diff completely for you and set it up and send it back, and all you have to do then is bolt it straight into the diff casing, into the axle casing. So a couple of things I want to look at here. First of all, I roll, the whole thing goes over, and in the middle here we've got sun and planet gears. So these will allow you, so if I roll this around normally, you can see that both of the output shafts, which go into here, that's where the drive shafts go. We're pointing upwards at the moment, they're both turning in the same direction. If, however, we're going around a corner, then the differential will allow one wheel to go in one direction and the other wheel to go in the other direction by using the sun and planet gears. There's no, on these Rover diffs, there's no way of adjusting these. On the stag diff I did ages and ages and ages ago, you put shims in behind and they adjust the backlash. These, you have to use the big wheel up here. There's this big kind of, there's a huge thread inside here, and I'll show you how that works if we have to adjust this one. I don't know, we will. I'm not going to take it apart if it doesn't need adjusting, because that's just pointless. Now, what I'll probably need to do, so first thing I would do on this is I would just rotate it around. I'm looking for chips on teeth, I'm looking for unusual wear patterns. There's nothing. It looks absolutely fucking spotless, this does. I'll look at the sun and planet gears. It's got mileage on it, but not horrific. It's looking really, really beautiful. Really nice. Excellent piece of kit. So, in order to check for the contact patch on the differential gears, we've got the drive side of the gear, which when we look at the profile, hello Swallows, we've got a flat edge here and a kind of slant. So this is the drive edge, that's the coast edge. Drive edge, coast edge. Probably didn't even see that, did you? Let's just see if we can find it. Yeah, that'll do. So this face along here that I'm scratching now, that's the coast edge. This face on the top here, that's the drive edge. And there's different markings that you're looking for, and I use an engineer's blue and just paint it onto the gears, and as I rotate it around you can see where the mark patterns are. This is something I printed off on the internet, it's pretty much the same for every single gear. It gives you the terminology here on the bits you're looking for. It's quite useful to look at these things. So that's the ideal pattern. In fact, that's not a brilliant diagram, this is probably a better diagram. So what we've got is on the drive side of the gear, perfect. Drive side of the gear, sorry, coast side of the gear, perfect. Then we've got this kind of scenario where the backlash is correct, thinner pinion gear depth shim required. Then we've got that one, ring gear backlash correct, thicker pinion gear depth shim required. Then we got that, which is the backlash and backlash. So you can see all the different patterns that you're looking for on here. And it's just a case of putting the engineer's blue on. Just clean it off. I've not used this since I did Alan's gears. But this stuff gets absolutely fucking everywhere. So I'm going to put my gloves on for a start off is what I'm going to do. Because otherwise I end up with blue fingers. Gloves, 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 gloves. Please amuse yourselves while I bung my gloves, glovey McGlove faces on. Now this stuff actually comes as a paste. It's liquid really. It's a gel liquid, let's say. Let's get the cover off. Let's get the top off. Right. Now, sometimes this thing has been a bit of a bastard to get open. Get this stuff. I mean, I can't remember where I got this one from. This is a Stewart's micrometer engineer marking. The original Stewart's micrometer engineer marking. You don't need gallons of this stuff. Tiny little bit. Let's see if we can get the top off it. No. I might have struggled with this before actually. Here we go. Lid off. You can see it's been stored on its side a little bit. It's a little bit kind of jelly, pasty sort of stuff. Very sticky. I use this bit on the inside here. Just got an ordinary paintbrush, get a load of it and paint it onto a big chunk of the gears. It dissolves with oil. You don't have to worry too much about it. That's why I wouldn't use anything other than an engineer's blue. Just making sure you've got a really good coating. Okay, that looks pretty good. Happy enough with that. I shan't wedge the lid back on just yet. Right, now all we have to do now is to rotate the gears around, go a couple of times, just so we get a good coating on the pinion and the crown wheel. Now let's have a look at the coating. Oh, this is looking nice. So on the drive side of the gear, I don't know if you can see this, but I've got a contact pattern that starts here and finishes there, and you can see along the top edge there, hopefully you can see it on the top edge here. That's a really nice mesh pattern. So that's on the drive side. I'm expecting, because the drive side's good, we'll look at the coast side. And I'll turn this around, and here on this side now you can see the mesh pattern starts there, ends there, and runs up to the top. I'd say that that is absolutely spot on. I honestly cannot see any problems at all with that diff. I'm not going to change a thing, which is good news. Well, it's bad news for you who wanted to watch me tear a diff apart. But I'm afraid that is as nice as I could get it. Do I get the torch? Perhaps you can see it a bit better. I don't know if you can see it or not, because let's just torch it with torch face. Right, so here's Mr. Torchy. If we look at this one here, you can see starts there, finishes there, and it's a nice oval pattern on the gear. And it's worn through the blue, so you can see where the blue is, and then you're looking at where the contact patch is. And on the other side, let's turn him right round here. Again, looking at this one here, you can see that the contact patch starts there and finishes there, and it's nice and even across the tooth. And in fact, if we then look at these other ones, further proving the point, where the blue has transferred onto the pinion gear and is now marking the other teeth that I hadn't painted, you can see we've got a more or less perfect contact pattern on here. Which, as I say, is good for me because I don't have to take it apart, bad for you because you don't get to watch me shouting at a differential. I'm going to put it straight in. New gasket, that can go straight into the axle casing, I think. I don't have any problems at all with that one. And then the rear axle is waiting on discs. And that's it, I think. Maybe the front axle. I will do a differential. I'm just not going to do this one. It's worth doing one that's crap, and I can show you how they go together. But I'm rabbiting now. I did the 1972 car. Did the diff on that. The front diff on that one needed doing, but the rear diff was fine. This is the rear diff. They're interchangeable. They work the same. The difference with the rear diff casing on this one is it's got the fill plug on the actual housing rather than on the diff pan on the back of the casing. So again, make sure that comes out. And it does. It's nice and clean. Oh, I'm pleased. More evidence that this car is low mileage and very well looked after. Shame the gearbox went. No idea what happened to the original gearbox. Because I've got a C-suffix gearbox came with it. Now, I don't know whether. So I got a B-suffix gearbox I picked up. If anyone's restoring a B-suffix Range Rover and they're after a B-suffix gearbox, then I've got one. LT95. Right, we're done. Let me get the axle casing back up here and we'll put this back in. Excellent.